This is a presentation of the Sports Source Digital Network, presented by Hearthside Bank.
Another week and more numbers for us to dive into as you're inside action right here on the Sports Source Digital Network. How goes it? Tyler Ivens. Be sure you ring the bell to subscribe. Anytime new content from the Sports Source Digital Network hits, you will be in the know. Some changes are coming, especially with us now hitting spring, heading into the summer. Yeah, we could talk hockey, basketball, baseball. We're not going to do all that. With us less than 130 days away until the University of Tennessee kicks off in Atlanta, I'd say let's look ahead, because so many of you like futures numbers. So how about we talk about the present and a man in the past who for so often has been spot on Sundays during the Sports Source when it comes to the look ahead number. Well, I had to place a phone call. Chuck Cavalaris, brother, I appreciate you. All throughout this summer, why don't we look at some of the popular future bets where there is tons of value, and there's actually plenty of value with the recent change at quarterback for the University of Tennessee. So let's hit the ground running. I just want your thoughts right out of the gate. It's a one-for-one trade, essentially, between the Bruins and the Volunteers. Nico out, but the arrival of Joey Aguilar. Right. Your overall thoughts at quarterback one?
Well, it's time to turn the page.
Yep.
Right. I mean, and it was the first NIL quarterback trade in college football history.
Essentially.
Is what you had. So you needed to have somebody to come in for competition. I don't think he's automatically the starter. I still like Jake Merklinger and some of the things he can do, but the competition is going to help make this team better. And I think it's good for a lot of reasons to be able to add somebody who's got so many experience with college football starts.
I'm a nerd, and I get often asked in public, how do you come up with your numbers? Or how is your success rate so good on action? I have so much free time when it comes to this hobby. Sports gambling becoming a hobby for so many people. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Trying to find the value at the end of the day could get you large paydays. And I've learned the more and more that I've looked, the futures, if you can look into your crystal ball and you can beat the desert or beat the sports book to some of these numbers, you can turn around in October, December when it comes time to buy Christmas gifts and have some serious cash in your account. There are three topics I want to tackle today, and I want to start with this timeline. Let's rewind just a couple of days ago. Nico's still the quarterback at the University of Tennessee, and their win total was sitting at 9.5. We even did a video. You can click back there to the right, if you will, those suggested videos, and you can see there were some popular takes. Just even over the camera, Chuck, I'll show you. Those were some of the windows we had, or some of the win totals we had behind the scenes. And one of my favorites were the under 9.5 for Tennessee.
Right.
Nico leaves. It drops down to 8.5. Joey Aguilar's an addition. It's staying at 8.5. So let's look right now. Tennessee, based on multiple sports books, has a win total in 2025 at 8.5. Your thoughts on the number where it currently sits? Some people believe Nico was good for at least one win.
Right, and I'm one of those people. Mm-hmm. And if we were sitting here setting win totals, I wouldn't have set it at 9.5. And I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Tennessee's going to be an underdog in at least 3 games. At home against Georgia.
September.
And then you're going to be on the road at Alabama.
October.
And then on the road at Florida.
November.
You haven't won at Alabama and Florida since early 2000.
Correct.
You hadn't beaten Georgia since a Hail Mary pass in Athens, correct?
Dobbs nail boot.
Okay. So those 3 games, can you win one of those? Probably. And that's going to take something special. That's 3 losses.
Right.
I also look at this, man, and we would talk about it. Tennessee kind of has a clunker in November. There's that one game that you kind of shake your head and you're saying, so we're sitting here setting this. If I set it at 9.5, I'm telling people to go under.
As they should have.
8.5, I think, is right spot on.
I think the transfer of Nico Iamaleava corrected the market, especially for the odds makers in Vegas who said, no, Tennessee, their number should be 9.5. They had the 4th highest win total before Nico left. They had the 4th highest odds to win the SEC.
Right.
They now drop to 8-8. They have the 8th win total. They're in the LSU A&M range, but with the 8th best odds to win the SEC championship. There's not much of a disagreement here. We believe this entire time it should have been 8.5, and I think this is a correction by the market that Nico has assisted the desert.
And the last thing I would say, think about all the lines and odds and everything these guys have got to set, right? Or we would try and set.
Yeah.
So one slips through. At 9.5, that was the 3rd highest win total in the SEC.
There you go. Only behind Georgia and only behind Texas.
Exactly.
That's correct. 8.5. Here I was thinking that you and I would be going head-to-head right out of the gate. I think it's going to be different with this one. Shouts to John Pennington for a little bit of the collab here to get us these numbers, because this is going to be an interesting mark when you talk about player props and futures for who we believe could be starting quarterback Joey Aguilar. Through 7 seasons as a head coach, that's the 3 he spent in Orlando and now the 4 that he's had in Knoxville, quarterbacks at the University of Tennessee in Central Florida are averaging 283 yards per game. Joey Aguilar in his 2 seasons in the Sun Belt at App State is averaging right around 271 yards per game. So, Chuck, the total for Josh Heupel quarterbacks for 7 years, 283. Joey Aguilar, the last 24 months, 270. Where should this number be when it comes to average yards passed per game, if in fact Aguilar is your starting quarterback?
Well, I mean, when John gave us these numbers, man, you look at what Tennessee did when Hendon Hooker was the starter. There's been a 20% drop in passing yards from Hendon Hooker when you hand it off, to Milton.
Right.
And then when Milton hands it off to Nico, there was about a 10% drop in your passing yards. So if you look at the big number for the 7 years, I think you see one number. I'm going conservative on this. I look at Tennessee as a running offense, and I don't know that's going to change much. I'm looking at like 250 yards a game passing. And I actually think that would be pretty good, especially with a revamped offensive line, and you still need another receiver to feel good about that group.
Give me that number again.
250 yards a game passing.
An offensive line that still has large question marks. Wendell Moy, Sam Pendleton. You already know who your tackles are going to be. You're booked in here. You can kind of see my thought process as I talk out loud. You know where you're going to be with Lance Hurd. You don't pay David Sanders that kind of money unless he is starting at right tackle. But that was confirmed with Larry Johnson in the transfer portal. To your point, though, I think that this is going to be the largest season at offensive line for question marks. You're going to have to replace a lot of those stable pieces that you've had the last couple of years.
Center.
Okay, and that's the thing. Cooper Mays is the one that we keep going back and forth with. Look at how important he was whenever he was dealing with the hernia surgery and some of the issues that he was nicked up on the Florida game 2 years ago. Right. I mean, come on. You say 250. Why do I think it's somewhere in the range of like 275?
Wow.
We have a gap of like, well, hang on. The one thing I've noticed about Joey Aguilar, and I went back and I watched his film. I watched the South Alabama game, which, by the way, it wasn't his best performance. But then I saw the Georgia State game, and it was one of his best performances. He, in this offense, is going to have to get the ball out of his hands quickly and hope that the receivers and running backs make plays. He already has that attribute that's high on his list. Yeah. So I believe it's going to be somewhere in the middle of this, because a broken play here, a missed tackle, an explosive play, I think it's a little bit more in the middle. So you say 250, I'm going to say 275. For the sake of episode 1, I'm going to hit you at 267.5. Now, where did I go wrong here? Because as I mentioned at the top of the program, I'm Vegas right now. I sniffed it out. I'm going to bait these people in. But you come in with the correction, and you're closer than I am. Why did the 17 additional yards make you balk?
Well, who's going to give you that when we haven't seen it in the past three seasons?
Am I making too big of an assumption that the wide receivers will take a big step for Kelsey Pope?
Excuse me, didn't we hear that last year?
Okay.
I mean,
maybe I'm letting 24 dictate 25.
Look, this is a running offense. You're going to have more of a running back by committee, but you're going to be a running offense that tries to spread the field again. I mean, I can see some of that. What happens if Joey throws a couple of picks?
And he's going to.
Then what happens then? No, I mean, that's going to be the difference in going over. If he can keep those interceptions and turn some of those into completions, and also catch and run. Are we going to see some of that? I hadn't seen that. So no, it's 250. The number is 250.
Advent Electric has been providing high-quality electrical contractor solutions for 46 years. From 24/7 emergency electrical services to providing skilled residential and commercial electrical contractors and everything in between. Our expert certified electricians are equipped to help you no matter the size or complexity. Advent Electric, 865-588-0631.
And I saved the best for last on this one.
Okay, man.
Because I love watching the public dictate the number and see the overcorrections. Let me give you a timeline quickly. It opened at 13.5. I'm talking about the August 30th opener in Atlanta,
right.
Vols, Syracuse. Immediately, numbers released, public drops it down to 12.5. Nico enters the transfer portal, it drops down to 11.5. Your total goes from 55 to 54.
Right.
With the addition of Joey Aguilar over the last couple of days, it's now gone back up to 12.5. It has now gone back up to 55.5.
Right.
So your total, it's a little under 8 touchdowns. Your spread, a little under 2 touchdowns. Where did they get it right? Where did they get it wrong?
Well, I tell you what, I think it's being close to spot on that number, and I'll tell you why. I think Syracuse is going to be down. I don't think Syracuse – I would have loved to have seen this game last year. I'd love to see what Syracuse brought to the table.
Nico,
Nico, that would have been a really good matchup to me.
I don't disagree.
Syracuse win total I saw was 5.5. I mean, that's a middle-of-the-road kind of team. I can see this number going up. We'll see what happens with it. But it's a correction that needs to happen because you've added somebody after you lost the number 1 guy in the portal.
What would you set this number at? As of this moment, 12.5, 55.5.
I think the total may be a little high. I think it's headed to 13. And I think it's going to be back to where I thought it was, 13.5. And there's going to be value in taking the points. I'll tell you that. Now, Tennessee last year, I think, was 7-5 against the spread.
Yes.
As a double-digit kind of favorite. I think they didn't cover 3 times that I'm thinking of now. They did at Vanderbilt at the end. The one that they did. So we'll just see how it plays out. But the total may be a little bit high, and I think it's going to end up right around that 13.5 where it should be.
They had a rough November, too. That Mississippi State game was sky high, and they had just enough. Mississippi State covered at the end.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It might have been 28 or something with the line. I mean, it was
25.5.
25.5.
Whatever the number was, it was just below that.
26, 26. So what are you going to put down there?
I think this is too many points. You have Joey Aguilar right now who has 16 weeks to get familiar with Heupel's system. And how often do you talk Sundays with Pennington and the rest of the Sunday crew? How often do we talk Saturdays during the kickoff? Well, it always takes the second year in a system. It always takes the second year in the system. I don't think that this is going to just be glossed over for the quarterback position as well. He's going to have to come in and he's going to have to earn every dollar of that alleged 1.2. I think that we'll start seeing it click in October, but we're not going to see it click in September.
One last thing. I think this has got the chance to be more like Tennessee against NC State last year. Tennessee ended up blowing them out. Too much team speed, too much talent. It was 51-10.
I hear you.
Was the final on that.
But they kicked him in the teeth from the word go. You think that they're going to be able to just zipper this thing up and just body bag them early?
No, we'll see. I'm just saying there's a side there to consider. Plus, I think, is the money going to be on Tennessee or is the money going to be on Syracuse? What's the public doing?
I think from a public standpoint, and this is where your expertise comes in, I think this thing's going to keep going north. I think this thing's going to get over 2 touchdowns. And I think usually we're taught what? If you're taking the underdog, get on them early. If you're going to take the favorite, make sure that you get on them late. So, beg your pardon, flip that around. Usually when you get the underdog, take them late, take the favorite, take it early, because that number's just going to climb.
Right.
Maybe this will benefit the people who actually wait, because if the public keeps sending this up north of 2 touchdowns, I think it's heading in the wrong direction. When I saw it drop down to 11, I said, now we're getting into the right territory. Much like earlier in this segment.
Yes.
I thought that it was too high for the win total. The over-adjustment set it right for the market. I think that this total and this spread were too high, and now we're seeing an adjustment again. So what I'll set it at is I believe it should be 11.5, and I think that you should be talking about a total, probably 7 touchdowns and a field goal. So I'll set it at 53.5, and I think right now, wait a little bit longer, and you'll have an opportunity to get this thing over the 8 touchdown mark, and you'll be able to save yourself a field goal with the hook. Chuck Cavalaris, people are going to bookmark this, and they're going to look back and go, Chuck got you on all 3 and 2 of these because we're both set on the 8.5. Like, ring the bell and subscribe. You want future numbers? You want us to dig a little deeper on how the University of Tennessee is going to fare inside conference play? It's each and every week right here on Action. My man.